I never thought something so unforgettable would happen in the very place where I usually made coffee and ignored my feelings. It was a typical humid afternoon, the kind that wrapped around your skin like a secret. I was standing at the kitchen counter, chopping vegetables, pretending not to think about her, but she was there, leaning casually against the doorway, her dark skin glistening just slightly under the yellow kitchen light, like bronze kissed by fire. Her presence was thunder in a room built for silence. She was my best friend's older sister, visiting for the weekend, and she had no idea what she was doing to me. Or maybe she did. The way she said my name was different. It had a weight to it, like a song that only played for me. "You always this quiet in the kitchen?" she asked, one brow raised, lips curved into a smirk that could crush morals. I turned my head slowly, careful not to let my voice betray me, careful not to let my eyes reveal the softness blooming in my chest. "Just focused," I replied, smiling like I meant it. She took a slow step forward, like a storm cloud creeping toward a sun-drenched day. "Focused on what?" she murmured, and I swear the air between us shifted. I tried to laugh it off, told her I was perfecting my chopping skills, but she didn't move away. Instead, she came closer, close enough for me to smell the faint vanilla in her perfume, close enough for my hand to tremble slightly against the knife. She noticed. She always noticed. Her fingers gently brushed mine as she reached for a tomato from the cutting board. "You ever wonder what it'd be like to stop pretending?" she asked, her voice low, coaxing. I stood frozen, unsure of what she meant, or pretending to be unsure, because deep down, I knew. There was something about her, something in the way she moved through space like it was made for her. Her laughter filled the kitchen a few minutes later when I dropped the knife in surprise at a joke she made. Something naughty and bold, yet light enough to pretend it didn't mean anything. But I knew what was happening. There was a shift in gravity, a different kind of electricity in the way we danced around each other, the kind of pull that didn't ask permission. That night, while everyone else slept in different corners of the house, I found myself awake, sipping water in the dark kitchen. She was there, of course, leaning against the fridge, arms crossed, wearing a silk robe that did very little to conceal her curves. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked, stepping closer. I shook my head, suddenly very aware of the sound of the refrigerator humming. "Me neither," she whispered. And then she did it. She walked right up to me and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear like she'd done it 1,000 times in her head. "You always been this pretty and shy?" she teased. My heart didn't beat. It roared. I looked away. "You're dangerous," I whispered. She laughed, not like she didn't believe it, but like she enjoyed the truth of it. "Good," she said, her fingers now trailing my jawline, gently, slowly. "Maybe it's time someone made you feel alive in your own kitchen." I couldn't think. I couldn't move. The world narrowed down to the warmth of her fingers and the softness of her voice. And then, with one lingering glance that asked for everything but demanded nothing, she leaned in, close enough for her breath to dance on my lips. She didn't kiss me. Not yet. But it was an invitation, and my body responded before my mind could catch up. I stepped back instinctively, heart racing, cheeks flushed. "This isn't right," I mumbled, but she only smiled, unfazed. "Or maybe it's the most right thing you've felt in a while," she said. And then she turned away, leaving the kitchen like she hadn't just cracked my entire world open. I stood there long after she was gone, alone in the kitchen where the air still carried her scent and my confusion. Something had started, something I couldn't name yet, but it was bold, dark, intoxicating, just like her. The next morning, I moved around the kitchen as if nothing had happened, as if her fingers hadn't whispered across my skin and her words hadn't burned themselves into my memory. The sun was bright and unbothered, casting golden lines on the tiled floor. I kept my head down, frying eggs and toasting bread, hoping the heat on my face could be blamed on the stove. But then I heard her, barefoot, humming some slow R&B tune as she walked in, her robe now replaced with a tank top and loose shorts that showed off legs sculpted by sin and sunlight. She didn't say anything at first, just walked past me, opened the fridge, and leaned down with the kind of slow, lazy grace that made me forget how to breathe. I stole a glance. She noticed. Of course she did. She always did. "You always cook this early?" she asked, grabbing an orange and tossing it from one hand to the other. I nodded, focusing on the sizzle of the pan. "Something about the morning feels safe," I said, not even sure if I believed it. She smiled behind me. I felt it. She moved beside me, close enough for her shoulder to graze mine. "You didn't sleep much, did you?" Her voice was gentler now, lower. I shook my head. "Me neither," she added. There was a silence that stretched between us, long and knowing. "Listen," she began, setting the orange on the counter. "About last night." Her voice trailed off like a string pulled slowly from fabric. I didn't let her finish. "You don't have to explain," I said quickly, even though I wanted her to. I wanted her to say it meant something. That the way she looked at me wasn't just curiosity wrapped in heat. But instead of explaining, she turned the stove off for me and took the spatula from my hand like it was hers to take. Then she gently pushed the plate of eggs aside and leaned both hands on the counter, caging me in without touching me. "I know what I'm doing," she said, eyes locked on mine. "And I think you do too." The boldness in her voice sent a flicker of lightning through me. Still, I hesitated. "But what if we're just caught in a moment?" I asked. She stepped even closer, her breath grazing the shell of my ear as she said, "Then let's see where the moment goes." Her lips brushed my cheek, not quite a kiss, but enough to make me ache. And then she walked away again, just like before, leaving the scent of citrus and desire in her wake. That woman knew how to set fires with her absence. Later that afternoon, I tried to lose myself in chores. Folding laundry, wiping counters, organizing the pantry, anything to distract myself from the heat building inside me. But when I walked back into the kitchen to grab a glass of water, there she was, again. This time barefoot, standing at the sink with the window open, sunlight pouring all over her rich, glowing skin. She turned her head slightly, smirked. "You following me, or is the kitchen just ours now?" I wanted to say it was a coincidence, but we both knew better. "Feels like it's ours," I whispered. She reached for a glass, filled it with water, and handed it to me without breaking eye contact. Her fingers lingered on mine, long enough for the water to ripple slightly inside the glass. "Everything about you is soft," she said. "Even your silence is soft." No one had ever said that to me. Not like that. Not with reverence. Not with heat. I put the glass down slowly. She leaned back against the counter, studying me. "You want me to stop?" she asked. "Say it now." My lips parted, but no words came out, because I didn't want her to stop. I didn't want to keep pretending I didn't feel her in the room before she even entered. I didn't want to ignore the way she made me question every rule I had written in stone about who I was allowed to want. I shook my head. "I don't want you to stop," I said softly. Her smile returned. Slow, satisfied, electric. "Good," she said. And just like that, she walked over and closed the kitchen door gently behind her. The click echoed like a secret sealed between us. She turned back to me, eyes glowing with mischief and promise. "No more pretending," she whispered. The kitchen door clicked shut, and in that stillness, everything else in the world ceased to matter. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of a car outside, the clatter of thoughts in my own head. They all surrendered to the gravity of her presence. She didn't come rushing toward me. No, she approached with the same kind of calm authority she always carried, like the moment would bend to her pace, and not the other way around. She stood in front of me, her hands resting lightly on the sides of my arms, and for the first time, I didn't flinch. Her touch was gentle, like she was asking permission through the language of her fingertips. "You feel this too, don't you?" she murmured. I didn't answer with words. I just closed my eyes and leaned into her, as if my body had already made the decision my mind was too afraid to voice. She took that as her answer. Her hands slid down my arms, slow and unhurried, until they reached my waist, where they paused, testing, waiting. I looked at her, into those deep brown eyes that seemed to know everything I wasn't ready to say aloud. And then she kissed me. It wasn't frantic or desperate. It was soft and patient, like she was discovering a place she'd always longed to return to. Her lips moved with a rhythm that made time feel irrelevant. I melted into it, into her, into the moment. It felt like coming home to a part of myself I'd hidden for too long. When she finally pulled back, her forehead rested against mine. I've wanted to do that since the second I walked into this house, she confessed, her voice a warm tremble. I smiled, my hands now wrapped around her waist. I think I knew, I said. I just wasn't ready to admit it. She led me gently to the edge of the kitchen counter, the cold tile meeting my back as her body pressed softly into mine. Her hands cradled my face, her thumbs brushing away every trace of fear. There was no rush in her movements, only care. She kissed me again, deeper this time, tasting parts of my soul I hadn't even explored myself. My hand slid up her back, feeling the strength of her shoulders, the smoothness of her skin beneath that thin tank top, the quiet hunger that had been building between us all along. Then she paused, looked at me with seriousness behind her heat. If I go any further, she whispered, it won't be just a moment. I nodded, my throat thick with emotion. I don't want it to be just a moment. The corners of her mouth curved into that slow, satisfied smile that made me feel entirely seen. And then she let her fingers explore more. My arms, my waist, the soft places where vulnerability lived. Her lips found my neck, and I let my head fall back, my breath caught somewhere between disbelief and desire. It wasn't just that she touched me. It was the way she read me, like I was a poem she'd been aching to memorize. The warmth of her mouth against my collarbone, the way she whispered my name like a prayer, it all unraveled me. Her hands didn't demand, they invited. Her kisses didn't consume, they lingered. And when she pulled my shirt over my head, it wasn't just fabric being removed. It was fear, shame, hesitation. I stood there bare and breathless in front of her, and she looked at me like I was art. "You're so damn beautiful," she whispered. "I hope you know that." I didn't. Not until then. Her lips returned to mine, hungrier now, but still controlled, still reverent. We were tangled between passion and patience, tasting everything we'd denied ourselves. My fingers slipped under the hem of her shirt, exploring the warmth of her skin, the strength in her back, the arch of her spine. We didn't say much. We didn't need to. Every sigh, every glance, every lingering touch spoke volumes. Then she lifted me gently, as if I were made of silk and meaning, and sat me on the edge of the counter. Her fingers trailed down my thighs, leaving trails of fire in their wake. "Is this okay?" she asked, even now, still asking, still honoring. I nodded, biting my lip as I leaned in for another kiss that said yes in every possible way. And in that sacred space, between flour-dusted countertops and cabinets filled with ordinary things, we became extraordinary. The countertop was cold beneath me, but her hands were warm, anchoring me, grounding me. I clung to her not out of fear, but out of need. Real need. The kind that builds slowly in the marrow and then erupts all at once. Her lips moved with purpose now, no longer just discovering, but claiming, savoring. She kissed down my jaw, down my throat, and every spot her mouth found felt like it belonged to her, like she had carved her name there long before I'd even known how to spell it. My breath hitched when her fingers slipped beneath the waistband of my shorts. She paused, eyes flickering upward like a final question. I answered without hesitation, gripping her wrist with trembling fingers and guiding her deeper. "Don't stop," I whispered, my voice uneven and raw. "Don't you dare stop." A quiet laugh escaped her lips, low, rich, and sinful. "Oh, baby, I wasn't planning to." She moved slowly at first, like she wanted to feel every reaction. And Lord, I gave her everything, every sigh, every soft gasp, every roll of my hips. She watched me unravel like it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. I felt powerful and exposed all at once. "You feel that," she murmured. "That's all you're the reason the room's shaking." It was bold the way she touched me, but there was nothing careless about it. Her confidence didn't come from dominance. It came from understanding. She read my body like it was hers to protect and to please. Her fingers curled inside me with intention, her mouth pressed to my shoulder like she was marking sacred ground. And then she slowed again, pulling her hand back, leaving me gasping in the absence of her. "Why'd I stop?" I breathed. She tilted her head, eyes burning with mischief. "Because I want you to want it. she said, licking her bottom lip. I want you to say it out loud. It took everything in me to push pride aside. But I did. For her. Please, I said shakily. I want you. That was all it took. She kissed me hard then, pushing me slightly backward onto the counter, my legs dangling over the edge. One of her hands cupped my face, while the other returned between my thighs, this time surer, deeper, hungrier. The kitchen air turned thick with heat, our skin dewy and flushed. And right there, in the most ordinary part of the house, I fell apart for her. My nails dragged lightly down her back. She growled, yes, growled, and her rhythm deepened. That's it, she whispered. Let me feel you, all of you. And I did. I gave her everything. When it was over, when the tremors had finally faded and I could breathe again, she stayed between my legs, arms wrapped around my waist, forehead resting against my chest. Our hearts were beating like they were dancing to the same song. I combed my fingers through her thick curls, both of us trying to catch our breath. You okay? She asked softly, tilting her head up. I laughed, a small, breathless sound. No, I said. I'm far from okay. You just wrecked me. She grinned. Good. I hope I ruin you a little more every time. I swatted her playfully, and she leaned in for one last lingering kiss. This one softer, slower. I'm serious, though, she said, brushing her thumb across my cheek. This wasn't just a curiosity for me. I need you to know that. I stared into her eyes, seeing not just desire, but something deeper. I know, I said. It wasn't for me either. We stayed wrapped in each other a little longer, the world outside the kitchen fading away. It was only when the oven timer beeped, some forgotten meal we'd never started, that we burst into laughter, pulling ourselves back to earth. She helped me down from the counter, hands still possessive on my hips. You sure we should leave the kitchen? She teased. Feels like we built a whole new world in here. I leaned against her, smiling. Then maybe we should live in it for a little while longer. We didn't leave right away, we just stood there. Two women tangled in silence and sweat, holding something between us that felt too sacred to rush. As the sun began to rise, spilling soft golden light into the kitchen, I realized that nothing would ever be the same. We were standing in the heart of the house, the room that had once only echoed with the mundane sounds of daily life. Now it was filled with a weight, a promise. We hadn't just shared a moment, we had shared an awakening. And in that kitchen, amidst the scattered chaos of an unfinished meal and the lingering scent of desire, we found something neither of us could have predicted. She kissed me one last time, this one slow, tender, as though savoring every second. Her hand slid down my back, pressing me closer, as if grounding us both in the new reality we'd created. Her lips barely brushed mine when she whispered, "We're not done here, are we?" I shook my head, the words thick in my throat. We're just beginning. There was no more pretending, no more questions about right or wrong. We were standing on the edge of something profound, something real. The world outside the kitchen could wait. In this space, it was just the two of us. No rules, no boundaries, just the shared rhythm of two hearts that had found each other in the most unexpected of places. She stepped back, looking me up and down with a mixture of admiration and hunger still flickering in her eyes. I want you in my life, in every way, she murmured. Her voice held the certainty of someone who had known all along what they wanted, even if they hadn't fully admitted it until now. I smiled, a soft, knowing smile. And I want you, all of you, every part. And that was enough. There were no more words needed, no more doubts. We didn't need to rush into the world outside. In that moment, we were more than enough for each other. The kitchen was ours, and it would always be our place. A sacred space where everything had shifted, where the past no longer had a hold on us, and the future was wide open. We stood there for what felt like an eternity, just holding each other, wrapped in the quiet, the peace, and the overwhelming truth that we had found something worth holding on to. The days that followed were a blur of subtle smiles, lingering touches, and moments of quiet understanding. It wasn't like the movies, where everything changed in a flash. No, this was real. It was slower, more deliberate, like a dance that required patience. We moved around each other, still learning the rhythm of our new connection. But there was no denying that everything had shifted. Each morning, I found myself looking for her, searching for that spark in her eyes, the one that said more than words ever could. We shared stolen glances over breakfast, lingering conversations that led nowhere and everywhere at once. The kitchen, where it all began, had become our refuge. We'd laugh about the ridiculousness of it all, and yet there was an undeniable depth to everything we said. The kitchen had transformed into a place where our shared secrets lived, where we could both be our truest selves without fear of judgment. But it wasn't just the quiet moments. There were nights when we couldn't keep our hands off each other. Those nights were just as electric, just as powerful, but now with a new kind of softness. Like we were both learning how to navigate this newfound closeness, trying to find balance between passion and trust. There were times when I found myself questioning everything. What did this mean for us? Was this just a fleeting experience, something that would fade with time? I didn't have all the answers, but I knew one thing for sure. The way she made me feel, alive, seen, understood, was something I couldn't ignore. And when I needed reassurance, she was there, always steady. "I'm not going anywhere," she'd tell me, her voice warm, certain. "Not unless you ask me to." It was in those moments that I felt my heart soften, my walls fall. She didn't just want me in the moment, she wanted me in the long run. And for the first time in a long time, I realized that I wanted the same thing. As the days turned into weeks, we found ourselves navigating the world outside the kitchen. There were moments of uncertainty, sure. Times when we weren't sure how to handle the world's gaze, how to explain us to those who didn't understand. But in each other's arms, none of that mattered. We built a life together in quiet, everyday moments. A shared cup of coffee in the morning, lazy afternoons spent doing nothing but being near each other, whispered conversations in the dark. The kitchen, once just a place for meals and small talk, became the epicenter of our world. It wasn't the stove or the counter that mattered. It was the love that had grown there, the love that had caught us both by surprise. And though the world outside was always shifting, always uncertain, we knew that as long as we had each other, we could face anything. In the end, it wasn't the passion that defined us. It was the quiet moments. It was in the way we held each other when no one else was around, in the way we spoke with our eyes when words failed us. It was knowing that no matter what came next, we had found something real, something worth fighting for. And it had all started in the kitchen. The aftermath of what had unfolded between us wasn't something that could be neatly contained. It wasn't just the quiet affection that lingered, or the soft, shared moments. It was everything. The fire that still burned beneath the surface. The way our souls had collided in ways neither of us had anticipated. There was an unspoken understanding between us now. Something raw, something unbreakable. It wasn't just love. It was a force, a pull, an unrelenting need that surged through our veins every time we looked at each other. The mornings felt like a quiet, simmering anticipation. Every glance over the coffee cup, every accidental brush of our fingers sent a shock through me. It was as if we were standing on the edge of something infinitely more dangerous, more passionate than either of us had expected. And neither of us could deny it. We had tasted something forbidden, something unspoken. And now there was no going back. There were nights when we couldn't hold back, when the desire between us was so palpable it felt like the world itself had caught fire. Our bodies, once hesitant, now found each other with a kind of urgency that bordered on desperation. There were no more games, no more cautious exploration. It was all or nothing, and neither of us was willing to hold back. The kitchen, once a place of simple routines, became the stage for our desires to unfold. Every inch of space between us seemed to hum with the intensity of what we had become. Two women bound by something that was far more than just lust. It was an insatiable hunger, an unspoken truth that we had to face. There was a boldness to the way we moved together now, each touch, each kiss, more intense, more daring than before. We weren't shy anymore. We weren't careful. We had crossed a line, and now the boundary between us and everything we had feared no longer existed. There were no limits, no restraint. We were free, and we reveled in it. And yet, in the midst of it all, there was still that softness. when the passion died down, when our bodies were entwined in exhaustion, there was an unspoken promise between us. It was more than the wild, intense moments. It was the quiet assurance that we had found something real, something we weren't willing to let go of. But that didn't mean we weren't pushed to the edge. There were moments when the intensity was almost too much, when I felt like I was losing myself in her. But then she would pull me back, grounding me with her gaze, with her hands, with the way she whispered my name as if it were a secret we shared. It was as if we were both learning to navigate the fire, learning to harness it, to keep it from consuming us completely, but not wanting to extinguish it either. It wasn't just physical anymore. It was deeper, more primal. It was in the way we breathed together, the way our hearts seemed to beat as one when we were near. And even in the moments when everything felt too raw, too intense, there was no fear. Just the knowing that we were in this together, that we had each other, and that nothing could break the bond we had forged in the flames. The aftermath of the aftermath was relentless, a constant pull between passion and vulnerability. We were constantly on the edge, our bodies and hearts intertwined, caught between the need to devour and the desire to protect. We were both willing to dive into the unknown, to keep pushing boundaries, knowing full well that there would be no turning back. But that was the beauty of it. There was nothing to return to, only the intensity of what we were building together. And neither of us had any intention of stopping. We were two women who had discovered the unspoken truth of each other, and in that discovery, we had found a power neither of us could have imagined. The aftermath had only just begun. It was a silent kind of chaos, one that made every breath feel like an invitation to unravel something far more dangerous. There was no turning back now. The air between us was thick, charged with a tension that neither of us had the power to tame. It was an unspoken challenge, one that neither of us was willing to back down from. Every glance between us was heavy with something more than desire. It was an understanding that we were standing on the edge of something explosive, something that could tear us apart or bind us together forever. Her presence was a constant pull, as though the very space between us was charged with a raw, magnetic energy. Every move she made, every breath she took, seemed calculated, deliberate, and I knew that she was testing me, watching for the moment when I would break, when I would cross that line we had both drawn so carefully in the sand. But there was no going back, no way to pretend we hadn't already crossed it. Each second that passed made the world feel smaller, as if all that existed in that space was the tension between us. Every touch, every word seemed laced with something that could burn or build, depending on how we chose to play this game. And yet, despite the weight of it all, neither of us moved. We stood there, poised on the brink of something neither of us was ready to name, but both of us could feel. The desire was a constant thrum in my veins, but it wasn't just physical anymore. It was something more, something raw and real, a hunger that came from a place I didn't even recognize. And when she looked at me, really looked at me, her eyes filled with a quiet knowing, I realized I wasn't the only one who felt it. It wasn't just a game of seduction anymore. It was a battle, one where both of us were vying for control, trying to outwit the other, trying to see who would break first. And yet, no matter how hard I tried to convince myself that I could walk away, that I could control it, there was no denying it. The more I resisted, the more I found myself drawn to her. The more I tried to hold back, the harder it became to breathe without feeling her pull. Every step she took closer felt like a dare, a question without words. And I found myself answering without even realizing it, leaning in closer, giving her more of me than I should have, but not caring. There was a fire burning between us now, a heat that made everything else fade away. I knew it was dangerous. I knew we were teetering on the edge of something that could consume us both. But I couldn't stop. Every moment, every glance, every touch felt like it was building towards something neither of us had the courage to fully acknowledge, but both of us were scared to let go of. The pull between us had grown too strong, too undeniable to pretend that it wasn't there. And in the silence, in the spaces between the words, I could feel it. The tension, the pressure, the unspoken promise of what could happen if we allowed ourselves to fall. We were standing at the edge, two souls tangled in a dance neither of us could control. And with every second, every heartbeat, I knew one thing for sure. There was no walking away. There was only the question of whether we would fall together, or if this fire would burn us to the ground before we ever got the chance to find out.